What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Box to Box Football, and it's hot take time. Um, Before I say the hot take, I want to apologize for not reacting to the Manchester City and Inter Milan game. Just got lazy. Uh, I'll be honest, but good game.
and I and I was drunk.
Jack was drunk off his head. Yeah. Look, I got a hot take for you guys. I'm not the biggest hot take type of guy, but I'm about to put one out there. And my hot take is that I believe Nathan Ake and Akanji were more important to Man City than Erling Haaland this season in terms of view of the treble and mainly the Champions League. And I'm talking about them from the point of view of Pep putting them into the team. Now, let me explain why. Manchester City have always scored goals. You look at in the Premier League last season, Jack, they scored 99 goals. This season, Jack, in the Premier League, they scored 94 goals. So the big thing with Manchester City wasn't really scoring goals. It was stopping goals. Now, let me take all the way,
Right.
Jack, let me take all the way to the Champions League. Now, I think it was last season, Manchester City scored 29 goals in the Champions League. This season, Jack, they scored 32. So they only scored three more goals than last season. The
Right.
big statistic, Jack, is that last season, Manchester City leaked 18 goals in the Champions League, while this season, Jack, they only conceded five. Now,
Right.
that is a massive, massive, massive jump. And I get everyone's going to look at Erling Haaland. He's the man. Man City bought him and they got the job done. And granted, 52 goals, I think 52 goals in like 51 games, something crazy like that. Incredible. I don't think he was the biggest reason for that. I think it was the fact that Guardiola realized that we can score goals. We need to stop opposition from scoring goals and also getting chances. Jack, I also look at the Real Madrid game. I also look at the Real Madrid games in the last two seasons. So, in the Real Madrid game last season, Manchester City scored five goals against Real Madrid in both legs. This season, Jack, they scored five goals against Manchester City in both legs. The difference is that they last season they leaked six goals against Real Madrid, while this season in 180 minutes they leaked one goal. They were a lot more solid at the back. That was the big reason they didn't give Real Madrid a chance going forward. And let me take it back to previous years. Manchester City's biggest kryptonite in years gone by is killer wingers. You take it back to
Right.
2018-19 when they lost to Liverpool, Mane and Salah. They just couldn't live with him. Obviously,
Right.
Firmino there too in the press, but those two were vital. You look at the season after, Human Son. They just could not live with his pace. And Lucas Moura and like Lucas Moura also, especially out wide. And last season with Vinicius, they just could not live with just extremely quick wingers, just like going at them. So what Guardiola did was insert two defenders and put them at fullback and said, you know what, you're going to defend these wingers and stop these wingers from really hurting us. And I take it back to let's forget about the Real Madrid game. Let's take it back to the Bayern game this season where you had Kingsley Coman and Leroy Sané out wide. Years gone by with, let's say, with fullbacks like João Cancelo, Zinchenko, Fabian Delph, they would have been got at. They would have been
Right.
destroyed. But the difference is that they had solid fullbacks or solid defenders who were willing to defend these wingers 1v1 and stop them from playing. And that's
And
the
can
big
and can play themselves.
exactly. And to me,
Yeah.
that's the biggest reason. Yes, granted, Erling Haaland, what he did for Manchester City was great and
Right.
amazing. He scored a lot of goals, but he scored a lot of goals in a team who generally score a lot of goals. The difference between them is the fact that they had proper defenders who knew how to defend, especially defend in the wide areas. Jack, I'll take it back to last season when Carl Walker got injured, and I think it was Fernandinho had to cover for him a fullback. And Jack, you remember the goal where I think the ball was played into Vinicius. He lets it roll through his legs, goes through Fernandinho's legs, and then he goes on to score.
Yeah.
Guardiola is on his knees.
Yeah.
That
Like,
was the
oh no.
difference. Exactly. And he goes on to score. That was the
Yeah.
difference between Man City winning and not winning. Not an Erling Haaland. Granted, he's great. But to me, it was the defensive structure, and especially in that fullback area where, Jack, nowadays, you got killer wingers. Wingers are more effective than strikers scoring goals nowadays, in modern day football. And to me, that's the reason why Manchester City won. It's as great as Erling Haaland is, players like Akanji and Nate Nake were more important to their success, in my opinion.
I think I like your theory, and I agree with you, and I believe it. But I just like the statement that they were more important than Haaland is, to me. I don't believe that is true because again, it's the quantity of goals, it's the attention he takes away. You're right, and I might even go as far to say as the whole reason they won the Champions League is because Pep identified a problem and he solved it. Simple as that. It's what football is to a certain extent, tactically speaking as well. What are you trying to do? Try and cover your weaknesses or make your weaknesses stronger, right? So they're not weaknesses anymore. And then shine light on your strengths and allow them to do their thing. I'll also say, and we talked about this slightly before recording, like, regardless of how much you actually think one is more valuable than the other, and I'm sure there's some XG way that you could figure that out, and like what the XG would be with those guys in the team or without them in the team, XG with Haaland scoring goals and whatnot. I think it's hard to pinpoint the value of each thing. And with the year that Haaland's had in particular, it's very, very hard to convince me with confidence to say that. But I like your theory. I hear you, and you explained it very well.
Do you know what it is? Is that for people just looking at the scores and looking at Haaland's goals, it's always going to look, man, look at them goals. The reason Haaland's goals equals Manchester City's Champions League, and to me, there's just a lot more to that. And offensively, City to me have always just been an outstanding team. Granted, last year they couldn't pull the trigger to really kill Real Madrid, but Jack, in the Champions League, sometimes you have to look at it from the point of view of, especially in two legs. It's right. You got to stop teams from playing and stop teams from getting chances. And Jack, over the years, that's been Manchester City's biggest kryptonite. They've always scored goals. Against Tottenham, Jack, in the second leg, they scored what? They scored 4 goals. In the second leg against Tottenham. But Jack, the difference was that they just kept on leaking at the Etihad Stadium. They were leaking chances. Yeah, and they were leaking goals, and that to me was always been a kryptonite to a Pep Guardiola's team on a European stage, and I think he was able to identify that this season. Jack, just remember this: Haaland didn't score in the semi-final in both legs. Didn't score in the final, and that it wasn't great in the final. He did score the 2 goals against Bayern Munich home and away, but granted, he scored the 3rd goal, and also he scored the 4th one. To be fair, his goal at Munich was big, and also he got the 5 goals against I think it was Leipzig. Granted, 2 Bundesliga teams. He loves that. But overall, when I look at these goals, were they effective? Yes, they were effective, but I don't think that they were as effective, and his overall play was as effective compared to me, Manchester City's defense. Because this is just me. When I look back at Manchester City's success overall this season, I will harp back to defensively. This team was so strong. In 2 games against Bayern Leverkusen, conceded 1 goal. 2 games against Bayern Munich, 1 goal. Yeah. 2 games against Real Madrid, 1 goal conceded.
And I think as much as those 2 fullbacks, I agree, are key components of that. Ruben Diaz gets a lot of credit. John Stones gets a lot of credit. James, I think if you're talking about a potentially underrated performer over the course of this season, Rodrigo might. I mean, I know we talk about Kevin De Bruyne, who will always get his flowers because he's just unbelievably talented. Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, obviously, but James, Rodri's been incredible. Rodri's been so good. He scored insanely important goals, least of all the final goal, right? And I'm just looking at some information here as well.
He scored the first goal against Bayern Munich,
Yeah, most successful passes. He leads the team in tackles, duels won. The guy's just an absolute beast. And James, look, 152 goals were scored by Man City this season in all competitions. 151 was it? Hang on, I've got it right here. Where is it? 151 were scored. Haaland scored 52 of them. So he scored more than a third of the team's goals in all competitions. That is amazing, right? Having the reliance like that is amazing. But you just mentioned it. How many games did you say? 6 games, something like that. they concede what, 2 or 3 goals. I think you're going to win a fair amount of games if you've got stuff like that. And James, at what point did we say, "Wow, Edison, what a season he's having"? He wasn't really called upon to do
He
too
wasn't.
much. And
He
again,
was exactly, Jack. Yeah,
the
granted, in
defensive
like
effort.
in the final, I'm happy you mentioned. Granted, in the final, he made them 2 saves at the end, but that's always going to happen. You know, the team with a bit of urgency tried to score the equalizer. They're going to pour on. Yeah,
Yeah.
Man City didn't concede that many chances. That was to me the main reason for me overall. Listen, the goals are incredible, and
Sure.
he has a big shout for the Ballon d'Or. But that's just my take. But guys,
But Jen, I will say just before we finish up here, we've been on this for a while. I don't think you and I are sat here telling everybody at home that Erling Haaland's not a top
no,
five
no, 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 no.
striker in
Best
world football,
right now.
and
He's the
not.
best. He's the best in the world in his position.
Yeah, he's insanely dangerous, insanely good. We just need to take a little bit of the mustard off this idea that he's come in his first season and he's the best striker the Premier League's ever seen, and that he's going to keep this going. And we've got Messi, we've got another Messi Ronaldo type thing happening here, goal a game type deal in the Premier League. Like, guys, we need to pump the brakes a little bit. And what he's being asked to do compared to what some of his contemporaries have been asked to do is kind of a different thing.
I just want everybody to look at, especially to me, how great defensively Manchester City have been this season.
It's not sexy to be a defensive fullback. It's not.
Listen,
You're not going to get a lot of praise for that.
it don't look great, and people are not going to point out to that. But to me, I like to think that I watch football and I see things that other people don't see at times, and that was one thing that was a big notice to me
Right.
defensively, how strong they've been this season. But guys, let me know. Am I chatting nonsense? Yeah. Is Akanji and Nathan Ake more important than Erling Haaland this season? Do you like my theory? Let me know. Comment down below. Me and Jack will see you next time.